So how do old heads function within the culture?
How?
Yeah.
They probably just listen to like the Glory Day stuff.
Hold up. This is a great segue. I don't even know how we did this. But recently there was a problem with Kodak Black beefing with T.I. in the game. Mm-hmm. And I started thinking it kind of transitioned the way that they were covering it. It was like the young buck versus the old heads kind of thing.
All right.
Like the lack of respect for the young man, for the older heads from the young man, and clout chasing for the old heads that could directly reach out to them and talk to them, but instead they publicly create music and all this other stuff. Like they go extra with it. So as I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, sometimes like even me as a Christian artist, sometimes there was tension within camps and whatnot, and there has been some battle raps, some real like battle raps between even Christians, right? So then I was just thinking about that, and I was like, how should we respond? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like the old head versus the young head. Should there even be like a old head versus young bucks? Should there even be a versus? How should we treat that?
Nah, man. I think like when you grow up, you're not gonna challenge like some young buck to a fight or something. But as an old head, like you might let a young kid know, hey man, you ain't walking in the right direction. Like you're arrogant, or you might say something like you lack respect. You see a lot of people nowadays, they just lack general respect for people. And I think like some of the young bucks coming up, they got rich quick. The older heads didn't get rich like they did now. There might be a little bit of
pride.
And so they're just like, hey,
it's ego trip.
I know you're making more money, but at least show some respect.
Yeah.
Like, especially with like the Bone Thugs and Migos beef or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another
They were
one.
just throwing money around.
Oh, the Migos.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it was them. Yeah, it was them. So it's just like a lack of respect to like older folks.
So what do you think? Okay. So what?
That's
role?
what makes it think. Like, what's the motive? You know what I'm saying? Because
what between the beef?
Yeah. Like I don't like. That's to me is what I'm in question. Like the older heads, they did what they did, and they're legends. Some of them, and some of them are still doing their thing. Why, as a new artist, would you like intentionally disrespect like the older heads? Like, what motive or what would you gain from that? That's the thing that I question. Like, why even?
Yeah, but I think that's the one-up culture. So you gotta one everybody up. You gotta be,
because it's all public now.
Yeah, it's like
everybody could see it, so they're like, "Oh, what are you gonna do about it?" It's like the fight in school. You know what I mean? Like,
and then it sucks as an older head because it's like it's a lose-lose situation. Let's say they really punked them bad, like beat them up or whatever. They look like suckers because they're the older dudes and they went and beat up a little kid.
Is that Cat Williams?
And then it's the opposite of that.
It was the other way around.
Then it's the opposite. If the kid comes and beats T.I. up or something like that, then you're like, dang, T.I., you didn't handle yourself. So it's it's a lose-lose situation.
So then you know how you
just ignore it.
Nah, I was just gonna say, you just take yourself out of that game.
Just ignore it
entirely. You just take yourself out. But I mean, like, how should you respond other than like taking yourself out? Like, is there a sense of responsibility?
For the older cat?
Yeah. Should there be a sense of responsibility?
I think it does matter only if the attitude that the youngin has like an intention that wants to grow and build or something like that, and you can see, then you step in and you're like, look, I can help you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But if he's just being reckless, I don't think you have to step in. Let him be reckless, because who wants to work up with someone like that?
You don't need to step in just to check somebody.
Yeah.
Right? To maybe just be like, hey, look, man, like I said, you wilding out. You need to reel it in a little bit. But I think some of the old heads are just a little like,
let me say it like this.
They think a lot of the new stuff is just whack.
Let me say it like this. I remember story that I heard.
It must have been with me, right?
Is that a good one? I remember a story I heard where there was a street, it has a reputation.
Yep.
And the police knew that there was this certain individual that had the influence of the whole street. Mm-hmm. So they went directly to that guy when things got too rowdy or whatever, to they kind of depended on the guy that was known as the older head or whatever, the father figure or whatever of the street. And they kind of worked with him, and he was just an influencer. Right. And they knew the power of going to that individual and addressing that. It wasn't his responsibility to do that, but he lives in this community and he built that the persona with his relationships that he was building in the community, and even the police officers acknowledged that and respected that.
Right. Yeah.
Don't you feel like in a small, like, there should be some kind of sense of responsibility? Now, I'm not saying like, oh, he's responsible for him directly, but I'm saying, like, let's say within hip hop, let's say a genre or something like that. Don't you think that the ones before do have some sort of responsibility as influencers, especially if they're still in the game active?
Well, and I think it's partially why some of the old heads get a little upset, because, like, I mean, I grew up listening to hip hop in the late 80s. I was young, early 90s. I got into it real young. So there was dudes talking about doing the best they can to educate folks in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, or wherever hip hop was at the time. And they were trying to move them forward. They were talking about laws and politics that made them subject to certain, living conditions and stuff like that. Like Grandmaster Flash was like, broken glass everywhere, people pissing in the streets, and they just don't care. So, like, they were rhyming about their situation. They weren't glorifying their situation. Right. They were like, this is how we live. We got to get out of it. So those old heads laid a foundation, at least in the sense where they were like, we need to get higher. We need to get out of this. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And now these dudes are talking about, like, let me hit it. I got this lean in my cup, like glorifying addiction.
Hold up.
So, like, I think do they bear the responsibility of intervening? I think if they could, if they can, they should, but I don't think they should just be checking dudes like, this is my block.
That's a crazy contrast. I never thought of it.
So, like
the other side of that coin too, and what I'm thinking, hold that thought, because you're killing it right now, is maybe I'm looking at it like the heads, like the faces of the business, and maybe it's not even the faces of the business's responsibility. Maybe it's the corporations, maybe it's somebody else, and we're just looking at rappers' faces, but not realizing that one artist has an entire team, the manager, the tour manager, the whatever agent, the this, that, all these, this entire team, and he just represents like a corporation. And then
they're commodities.
We just make it, we just pin it on them. That's his responsibility. Like, that's T.I. No, but T.I. represents a whole team. So maybe it's not even on him. Maybe it's someone in the community. Maybe I don't know.
Even the consumer.
Facts.
Right.
A sense of like all of us. Maybe
if it's
to
like,
a certain extent.
It's like, I like the way it sounds, but this dude is just talking about death. I can't get with that. So if we stop buying it, it won't.
Bro, what's bugged out is that we're covering it and talking about it right now. There you go, full circle. All the time. Wow, man, I feel like I learned a lot. Thank you.
Praise God, man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there's a small sense of responsibility, but then at the same time, it's no one's individually is responsible, but sort of indirectly responsible. Because you mentioned
why do you always gotta make it sound so complicated?
You mentioned the consumer.
Your recap sucks.
Right.
I'm saying he mentioned consumer. So in a way, it's the fans' fault.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is solely responsible for something, but I think you could have a level of responsibility if you have that influence still, right? If you're older head and you may, like J. Cole, he pulled, what's that dude, Lil Pump?
Yeah.
He had that little video with him, and he just kicked it with him.
Yeah.
But like, dude was clowning J. Cole online, but J. Cole took it on the chin. He was like, yo, just come through and let's talk about it, right? He wasn't like checking him, like, this is real hip hop, this is this kind of thing. He just pulled him in and was like, look, young dude, like, this is how I felt about the situation, and let's chop it up. Like, how do you do your music? How do you write your rhymes? So, like, J. Cole was like, I'm digging what you're doing. I'm not digging everything. I think this growing up you could be doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think his style's kind of fire. You know what I mean? And he wasn't really hating. He was big brothering him. You know what I mean?
But why he had to film it?
Yeah, that's another conversation. Yeah,
he's like, this is gonna get mad views on my YouTube.
Perhaps in an attempt to lure the other major artists like him,
maybe
to do the same thing.
He does have a platform.
Maybe he doesn't want to have some. Yeah. Maybe he doesn't want it to be about beef. Maybe he wants it to be about unity. So I don't know. But you know how everything is nowadays. Everything. So
you respect what he did then? in that situation.
Yeah.
Like he big brother.
It is a
Yeah, he
dope
big
move,
brother
though.
them. Because you look
It
at
is.
hip hop as a whole, it's very challenging, right? And
Yeah.
domineering and
Yeah.
braggadocious and bravado.
Yeah.
Like he could have easily went the
Yeah,
other route.
could have been a battle, and
Could have been a battle. Could have been
What,
a
something
physical
else?
thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
So he was like,
Not only that, but he has the ability to hit him with some facts
yep.
that nobody could tell him, because J. Cole's been in the industry for a long time.
Mm.
He probably hit him with a few gems like, bruh,
Yeah.
listen here, young man.
I
Like,
could
this
imagine
is,
what was set off camera, right?
yeah, like, this is the business, man. You need to understand this X, Y, and Z. Pretty sure that young man appreciated it, and that's why they followed his pride and they watched it.
facts. And now thinking about what you said about everybody sort of indirectly having a responsibility, right? What do you think about Kanye West?